Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Happy Saturday to you all. It is a pleasure to be back. Welcome back to another episode of Speaking with Judgment, hosted by myself, the sports judge. And this is a baseball edition. This is a baseball episode. I am joined by my good friend, Rich Daniels. I remember he likes to be called by Rich. So I will respect that and say, what's up, Rich? How are you doing, man?
I'm
Thanks.
doing I'm doing great, Jonathan. Every time somebody uses my full name, I think I'm in trouble. So I gotta be careful.
I hear you on that. I hear you on that. And we got a great show for our baseball viewers out there. Now, I know baseball is not a popular choice by many, but hey, we follow the sport. We love the sport. It's the only thing that keep us going through the summer. And I think this could be a fun episode. We got plenty to talk about. Shohei Ohtani could be on the move. We'll dive into that. Will he be traded before the trade deadline? And where will he end up? We'll get into that. We'll also talk a little bit about the Dodgers because they're starting to heat up. I just finished watching the game against the Texas Rangers. Very encouraging win for the Dodgers. The Dodgers can complete the sweep tomorrow of the Texas Rangers with another win. It was a great victory today for them. We'll get into that. And I know it will be very difficult for this to happen, but we'll talk about Nolan Arenado and the possibilities of him getting traded to the Dodgers. And then we'll talk about Tim Anderson. He's going to be on the move. He's had an unproductive year, and I think that it's time for the White Sox to move on from him. But, Rich, how are you doing, man? I talk a little bit about yourself before we get into the show.
Oh well, I mean, this is going out over our platform that we used to run at 643 Baseball. I've
Absolutely.
recently started a new page that's going to deal basically with just Major League Baseball trading. And player movement and things like that. It's called MLB Trade Machine. You can find that on Facebook and take a look at what we got some new stuff on there today, including a couple of things we're going to talk about here. Man, I'm just excited. This is old school for me because I used to be in the radio business and talking about this stuff a lot too. So now, man, this is just all for fun. So I'm really looking forward to this show. And by the way, as always, your T-shirt game is there, man. Your T-shirt game is killing it today, man.
Oh man, hey, you know what? This was last minute today too, and I just decided. I saw it was the first thing I looked at in the closet, pulled it out, thought I'll put it on, and that's the one I got on today. The Bel Air bunch with all the different cast members from Fresh Prince of Bel Air. And
Yeah,
I
see,
love my graphic tees.
dude, I cannot compete with you. I'm just going with the old guy polo today.
Oh man, it's a lot of fun getting dressed in the morning. I look forward to it. but you're hearing all the talks about Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani is gonna be on the move. Um, I don't think he's gonna be in the Angels uniform. Definitely not anytime soon next year. He's out the door either way. Even if he does decide, even if the Angels do not trade him this season, I don't know where I stand with it is that I think he's gonna get traded. I think you got to move on from him because you get that sense that he is gonna walk in free agency. So you might as well get something for him while you can, and you can get a big haul in return for a guy like Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani is a generational talent. You can get a lot for him. You could get a lot of great assets in return if you move on from him. I think now's the time the Angels trade him. There's a number of teams out there interested. He will have a lot of suitors. Things haven't worked out as planned with the Angels. The Angels don't really see the playoffs that much. The time has come for the Angels to make one of the most painful moves any team has ever made in MLB history, and that is to trade Shohei Ohtani. The Angels still own a winning record and remain in the hunt for one of the three wild card spots in the American League, but I don't think that really matters at this point. I think you got to look into the foreseeable future. There's a lot of injuries that has piled up with this Angels organization. Rendon has been an utter disappointment since they signed him. Some people have even said that it's the worst contract in Angels history, if not baseball history, because the guy has not seen much playing time on the field. And, Ohtani, I think more than anything, he wants to go somewhere where he knows he can win. And I think he has a chance to go somewhere else and have that opportunity to reach the playoffs. I mean, it's a real shame that we have not seen this guy in the playoffs. We have not seen him in the playoffs because the Angels can never get there. Rich, do you think the Angels will trade Shohei Ohtani, and where would they trade him to?
Well, at this point, I think what a lot of people have to look at is that, I mean, of course, you're looking to the future next year and beyond with Ohtani and what you're going to have. First off, there are major league general managers right now who are talking about the fact that a 10-year, $600 million contract for this guy isn't going to get it done in free agency. So you're talking about probably an unprecedented contract level that you're going to see. And let's face it, you're not trading for one guy. You're not trading for just Shohei Ohtani. You're trading for one of the top four, maybe, hitters in baseball. And you're also trading for a top flight starting pitcher, a guy who could be an ace in a lot of rotations in Major League Baseball. You're getting them both in one guy. And that's just, again, his productivity is unprecedented in baseball. His value is unprecedented in baseball, and his timing is amazing when it comes to salary level that he's going to be able to demand when it comes to, signing as a free agent. Now, trading for him at this point, that's a very, very expensive rental at minimum. You really got to convince the Angels to give up their run at a wild card spot, because if the Angels trade him away, they are giving up completely on the wild card quest. Mike Trout's health may dictate that a little bit if he somehow has a setback, or if he's slow to come back from that wrist surgery that he had. That may dictate it as well. But Mike Trout could be coming back right around the trade deadline, maybe a little bit after. And the Angels are going to have to determine, what's more important, making the playoffs this year, which may or may not entice Ohtani to resign. Who knows? He's the only major league organization that he's ever known. So, the Angels could, the Angels could be banking on that. Or you could try to cash out the best you can right now, which means, throwing up the white flag for the rest of the season, more than likely, because you're losing one of your middle of the order hitters and one of your top starters in one fell swoop on a trade like that. Now, teams that could go after him, there are all kinds of teams that could definitely, and they're all big market teams. You're not going to have the Pittsburgh Pirates or the Oakland A's trading for Shohei Ohtani right now. I would have to think it's the teams that have the best hope of re-signing him when it comes down to free agency. I know Boston would love to have him. That's for sure. They've already invested in several Japanese players in the past. Why not now? I mean, they've got a good track record there. The Yankees are always a player when it comes to spending money and throwing around big contracts. That's a team that could desperately use him on both sides of the baseball. Right now the Yankees are old. They're banged up. They're not performing well. A top-notch starting pitcher and one of the best hitters in baseball coming into their lineup will just change everything for them. The question with the Yankees, though, is what do they have to offer? What are they going to be able to throw out there? Their farm system is somewhat depleted, not looking the greatest. They've got, their major league rosters got a lot of older players on it. So I don't know how much of a player they're going to be. A team that's come into the Ohtani mix here recently is the Seattle Mariners. Ohtani made that comment that, he likes Seattle and everything, with the All-Star game and everything like that. And everybody went crazy about, Shohei Ohtani to Seattle. And of course, their history with Japanese players, particularly Ichiro, and, the appeal into the Japanese market that the Seattle market has is a huge thing for a team to consider as well. So not only do they have to make an investment in players, but you got to make an investment in trying to re-sign him as well, because he's going to test free agency. He's not going to take a hometown discount with anybody. He's not going to, sign an extension or anything like that before the season's over. So you are rolling the dice 2 times with this trade for Shohei Ohtani. And that's even if the Angels want to give up their playoff run, which they are fully capable of making. They've got Mike Trout, Brandon Drury out right now. Those guys are going to – Drury's going to be back real soon. Trout's going to be back within a 2-3 weeks maybe. Everything could change for them in August, and they could get hot. Drury was just starting to hit when he went down. Trout, he's been solid for the year. Not a great year, but he's been solid for the year, doing well. Who knows? The Angels may be buyers for all we know at this point, trying to bring somebody in. They could use a starting pitcher. They could use a bat. They may end up doing that. We'll see what Zach Manassian has in store for everybody when it comes to the trade deadline for the Angels. Personally, I don't think Ohtani's going anywhere. I think they're going to run out the string and take the and try and use that momentum and use that enthusiasm to entice Shohei Ohtani to re-sign with them.
Oh, absolutely. You don't want to lose out on a player like Shohei Ohtani. If anything, you want to keep him around for many years, and you want to build around a guy like that. Look, he's otherworldly. We're talking about a player who is extraordinary and who does extraordinary things. I mean, he is the best two-way player that I think I've seen, and I've been watching baseball for a very long time. And so, no, the Angels would be crazy to even want to lose a guy like that. I mean, it's a tough business, right? And that's the nature of the business. When you don't build around a cornerstone player like Shohei Ohtani, and when things are not going well, that's usually when you break the team up or you blow it up and you get rid of your best player. And, I mean, that's what it just seems like that's leading to here. I mean, it seems like we're seeing the final days of Shohei Ohtani in the Angels uniform. And he can end up in multiple places. I mean, there's a number of teams that's going to be in the sweepstakes. The Dodgers. The Dodgers are an interesting team to look out for. Look, he'll still be on the West Coast. He'll be in Southern California. The Dodgers are usually players in the offseason, particularly in the winter. They like to spend money. They're not shy to spend big bucks on a big name player. And this is probably why the Dodgers had a quiet offseason. And they didn't do much. They didn't spend a lot of money because they have their eye on Shohei Ohtani. Another team you mentioned that I've been saying to look out for, and I actually called this team a sleeper, the Seattle Mariners. The Seattle Mariners can make a big splash for him. I think it makes a lot of sense. Look, don't think Ichiro hasn't been in his ear trying to make him a pitch that he can't turn down. Making a sales pitch to get him to think it over before he even makes the jump. But maybe Ohtani has thoughts about playing in Seattle. The fans were chanting during the All-Star game. It's quite obvious that the fan base love him. He will become a superstar in that city if he does join that team. And I think it would be a perfect landing spot for him, simply because you talk about the Japanese population there. It's a great market to be in. The Mariners are subtly winning games. It's become a fun team to watch. The Mariners are enjoyable to watch. They have a stud in Julio Rodriguez, who's really good. Their pitching has been on point. You look at what George Kirby did the other day, had 10 strikeouts. You look at the rotation. You look at the wins that they have put together. I mean, I know it's been a up and down year this year, but I mean, no one's ever out of contention in baseball. Baseball's a funny sport, unless you're the Oakland A's, or it's certain teams that where there's no point of return, right? But the Mariners,
like, the Royals, the Pirates,
right. The Royals and the Pirates, right? But the Mariners is another team to look out for. Another team to look out for is the Mets. We all know that Steve Cohen likes to spend money. I mean, but where has that gotten his team? His team has been in total disarray. I mean, you look at the Mets and they haven't had much success this season. It's been an up and down year for them. And I mean, we're talking about an owner who spent a lot of money. And that goes back to what I've always say, Rich. It doesn't matter how much money you spend. I don't care how much talent you have. Consistency is what matters. And the Mets haven't been able to win games, even with a product that is flashy. I mean, you got a number of names over there, but yet you're still losing games. So, I mean, there's several places where he can end up. You talked about the Boston Red Sox. The Boston Red Sox is another name you could throw out there. Another team you can throw out there. Another team you could throw out there. Maybe the Yankees. Obviously, right? The Yankees like to spend big bucks. They're definitely in, but like you said, who will they give up for him? Moving forward as well. It's going to be interesting to see. This is going to be a very interesting trade deadline to see what happens. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens. And we got a comment here from my good friend Maurice. What's up, Mo? Thanks for watching. He says Cohen will spend money, but is it well spent? Good question. What is your take on that, Rich?
Well, I mean, look at who he's invested in. Yeah,
right.
Look who he's invested in. He invested in a couple of starters. One's 40, coming off of arm surgery. Another one is in late 30s, I believe. In Scherzer. He's got, he brought in all these veteran players, right? All these veteran players, and what's happened is you got that collection of guys, and what it's turned out to be is a collection of aches and pains. And the team has just never hit a rhythm. And if it wasn't for Francisco Alvarez, I don't think there'd be any bright spot for that team at all this year. I mean, Edwin Diaz going down, during the World Baseball Classic, hurting his knee. That just seemed to set off a chain reaction with that team for bad things to happen. You got a guy like who is mere batting average kind of guy, really good hitter, and he's having a down year. Pete Alonso's down near 200 in his batting average, and not able to put together a solid year or anything like that. And if it wasn't for Ariana Grande dating Dan Vogelbach right now, I don't think there'd be any news about the Mets.
Yeah, I mean it's actually hard to believe. It's really hard to believe that the Mets are struggling the way they are, and that Pete Alonso's numbers are really down. I know for a while there, people were really coming after Francisco Lindor because he just looked atrocious, and that's all you heard. The New York media was really coming down hard on him, and that's New York for you. That's how the media is there. But the Mets, no, they haven't looked like the team that everyone thought they would look like. Buck Showalter could be on the hot seat if things don't turn around there. There's going to be some major changes in New York if things don't work out well. And that's why I think Shohei Ohtani is a guy to look for. Maybe he can help turn that team's fortunes around. Maybe he's the guy that can give them that extra boost.
Now, he very well could be, but then again, how much money is Steve Cohen going to be doing? I mean, his investment and just talent alone, and along with luxury taxes and everything, he's gonna be pushing $500 million just for this season. When it comes down to it, and then you're going to go sign a guy more than that, or trade for a guy and then hope to sign him for that. See, that's the problem. That's the gauntlet that any team that wants to acquire Shohei Ohtani, in trade, is having to run. A, can you give enough to get him without destroying your team? And B, right, are you going to be able to re-sign him when it comes to December? And that's the question. And I don't know. I know Steve Cohen has been successful, in a lot of ways in his life. But man, I don't know if I'd be taking that. It's either an all or nothing kind of thing at this point, whether you go for Ohtani or not. And the Mets have, I think, enough of a talent package to be able to offer back to the Angels. But the question is, do you want to? Because the Angels aren't going to want their 40-year-old pitchers. The Angels aren't going to want their guys who are going to be free agents at the end of the year. They're going to want good, young, solid talent. And the Mets have some of that. They have some guys to offer, but at some point you're going to want to unload a salary or two in that trade as well. And I don't know if that's going to happen, but I just don't think the Angels are going to go for that.
Right, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. And a team that's willing to land Shohei Ohtani, they're going to be willing to push all their chips to the table, because, the Angels are going to expect a lot in return. A lot in return for Shohei Ohtani. They would be crazy not to. He's freaking Shohei Ohtani, for crying out loud. Come on. Rich, we're going to switch over now.
And in the long run, they're looking at getting in the long run, the Angels are just looking at getting a compensatory draft pick for him. So that's another thing that they have to play, that has to come into play as well. If Angels don't really think they have any hope of re-signing him in December, then they may have to pull the trigger. But I don't see that happening myself.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. But now we're gonna keep it. We're gonna keep it in Southern California. We're gonna stay in Southern California, because the next team I want to get to is, no, it's not the Padres. It's not San Diego. But we're going to talk about the Dodgers. Another team here in Southern California. Freddie Freeman has been absolutely on fire. He is insane. Freddie Freeman reaches the 20 homer plateau for the 10th time in his career, with 2 dingers today in Texas. It is something about that ballpark. I don't know what it is about that ballpark, but the Dodgers like to hit in Globe Life Field. I don't know what's in the air. I don't know what food they had in their hotel room, but it's something about that stadium that the Dodgers just love to hit. And let me tell you something. That stadium is beautiful. I've never been in person, but from TV and from the stuff I've seen on the internet, it is a palace. That place is huge. And, it looks like a nice place to take in a ball game. But to stay on track, the Dodgers are on a tear right now. Offensively, they're playing good baseball. They lead the NL West. I think we're seeing a turning point for the Los Angeles Dodgers. I think there's a chance that they can now run away with the NL West. I think they are that good. Now, their pitching is a bit suspect because they got a lot of injuries. The bullpen, although they have been great in recent weeks, they have had their struggles. We've seen the bullpen blow some leads. They haven't been able to always preserve leads. But that has changed in recent weeks. The bullpen has been phenomenal. Everyone who has come out of the bullpen, all the Dodgers relievers, have pitched consistently well. What are your thoughts on the Los Angeles Dodgers?
Well, I think the last couple of nights comes down to who they were facing on the mound. Last night it was Andrew Haney, a guy that the Dodgers know very well from having him in their organization recently. Okay, they didn't treat him too well. And then today, Dane Dunning is a young pitcher for the Rangers. He's done really well this year, but he's a pitch to contact kind of guy. He's not a bat misser. And you do that with the Dodgers, they're going to, I mean, you can pound the strike zone with all you want. The Dodgers are going to dial in on it and hit it, and he got hit hard today. So I think that helps explain a little bit of what the Dodgers are doing. But it also, I think, demonstrates the fact that you can't bring average pitchers to the mound and hope to beat the Dodgers. Okay, it's just not going to happen. Okay, no, that's Mookie, Dylan. That's Mookie, not Dookie. Anyway, yeah, the Dodgers have enough talent to be able to outdistance the Giants, and I think to outdistance the D-backs as well. Yeah. The D-backs are the big question in the National League West. Are they going to be able to keep sustaining what they've done? They've done it with, I mean, the way whenever that team is successful these days, it's because of the collective that they have, not because of any superstars. And that's exactly what they're experiencing again. I mean, everybody thought when they traded Dalton Varsho that they were giving up for this year, and it turns out that they are looking really, really good with that trade and making it move, to the top of the division. And Zach Gallen has been good. They've got some other young pitchers in there that have been holding it together, and that we'll see if they can keep going. I mean, it's they don't have that star power, so we'll see what they've got. The Giants have got some pieces. And, Michael Conforto has come back and played well this year. I think they're looking very good there. They're getting enough pitching. They're getting enough bullpen. Duvall is probably, one of the premier closers in the game. That's for sure. The Giants have a lot to offer. And but overall, I think talent-wise, the Dodgers have more than enough to be able to get the job done and win the National League West. And you notice I didn't mention that team in yellow and brown from down south. I didn't mention them at all, because that may turn out to be the big fire sale over the winter that everybody's talking about. I think those are the two headlines that it's going to be in baseball over the winter is, Shohei Ohtani, where he's going to be signing, and the fire sale that's going to be happening in San Diego, because AJ Preller's done it before. He's loaded up a team with a lot of talent, and they've disappointed, and he's gone out and he's had a fire sale and sold everybody off, before. That's how they got back to the point where they had so much talent in their farm system, and now they're in the same position. All these big names, all these big contracts, and they're just not performing. So I think the Dodgers. The Dodgers could stay where they are, maybe make a trade. There's one trade partner I think it's very important to talk about with the Dodgers, and that's the St. Louis Cardinals right now, because they've got some pieces that might be interesting when it comes to helping the Dodgers get where they want to go.
Absolutely. And we'll get into that as well. Doug comments, says, gentlemen, thanks for watching, Doug. Appreciate it. Thanks for checking in and watching the show, being a part of the show. Yes, I like what I'm seeing from the Dodgers, but, we see this all too well from the Los Angeles Dodgers, right? Every summer, the Dodgers kick ass, and then when they get to the postseason, when it's time to translate their game to the postseason, they fall short. And we often see that with the Dodgers. They're winning right now. That's great and all, but they got to do it when it counts. And until then, I believe in the Dodgers right now. I think they're a fun regular season team, but when they get to the playoffs, I have my doubts about them, because we all know what happens when October rolls around. When they flip the calendar to October, they're not the same Dodgers that we're seeing right now. But I like what I'm seeing. Today's win and yesterday's win was very encouraging. It's nice to see. I would like to see Julio Urias get back on track. He's been struggling since he came off the injured list. Mm-hmm. That's something to look out for, because if he's going to struggle, then the Dodgers are going to have a hard time winning games. You need Clayton Kershaw, and you need Julio Urias to be at top form. If they're not at top form, you're going to be in trouble because if I remember correctly, Julio Urias was the guy that sent them into the World Series back in 2020. So
that's for sure.
You need him to be up on his game. You don't have Dustin May. Dustin May is done for the year.
No, and there's so much going on with the Dodgers pitching staff right now.
Right.
You know, earlier I mentioned the Cardinals, and there's been a lot of buzz about the Dodgers maybe trying to acquire Nolan Arenado from the Cardinals. Honestly, I think that's a big, complex kind of thing that they're really going to have to try and pull off, and they're going to have to do it within the next 9 days. Nolan Arenado, while being a great player, I mean, obviously the Dodgers are very familiar with him having been in Colorado for so long, playing within the division. What you're getting with him is that contract. And that contract is a long, long contract with some big numbers in it and also some deferred payment numbers that go to like 2040. I think on his contract, and it's a real challenge to do that. And when you balance winning this year and going for, you know, trying to get to the World Series this year against what the Dodgers are ultimately doing, which is trying to hold their salary threshold down and trying to keep it there so they can go to an unlimited basis for a few years and go after Shohei Ohtani this winter, it's a hard balance. They have enough talent to challenge for that now. They have the ability to acquire a couple of other guys from the Cardinals who I think would be a smart move both ways. One is Jordan Montgomery, who's a left-handed starting pitcher for them, having a really fine year for the Cardinals. And the other is Jordan Hicks, who's a relief pitcher who, you know, his fastball touches 102, and he's having probably the best year. Yeah, he's having probably the best year that he's ever going to have. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year as well. So the Dodgers have plenty of talent in their farm system to be able to offer up to the Cardinals. They have some youngish kind of guys on their roster now that they can move in exchange for those two guys. I think that's a really smart move for the Dodgers if they can get those two guys to be able to go in there. And those are two players that aren't going to count against their salary threshold level when it comes to this winter and signing Ohtani. So, I mean, that's a great fit if you ask me.
Doug says Dodgers are going to be tough to beat in a 4 out of 7 series. We'll see.
Especially if you don't have a left-handed starter. If you don't have a left-handed starter against the Dodgers, you're just lining up against the wall with, you know, the blindfold on, because those guys, I mean, you know, you got those left-handed hitters are just going to dial in and mash that baseball. And even if you do have a left-handed starter, you got guys like Will Smith and JD Martinez who are going to make you pay as well. So you're better off with a lefty starter, but, you know, I mean, you neutralize some heavier bats that way. But, man, you know, the Dodgers are going to, I mean, as they stand right now, the Dodgers are a tough team, and they could get tougher without costing their future goals.
And they could get tougher with an arm like Jordan Hicks, who can come out of the back end of your bullpen. He is a solid back end reliever. He is great in high leverage situations. He is finally healthy. I actually like that trade proposal, Rich. Mm-hmm. I think that's a great trade for the Dodgers. And then you mentioned Jordan Montgomery, who's an old school type of pitcher, right? He pitches really well. He's a good pitcher at staying ahead in the count. You know, he goes right after hitters. I like Jordan Montgomery. Another guy I like too is Jack Flaherty. Jack Flaherty hasn't had a bad year. The thing with him is, you know, he can be injury prone. That's the thing with Jack Flaherty, and he's dealt with a number of devastating injuries over the years.
Yeah, the Cardinals have several guys like that. You know, Flaherty. You have Tyler O'Neill. You have Lars Nootbaar. You have, I mean, those guys have talent, but they have a hard time staying on the field.
Exactly.
You know, and it's you know, and as much as you hate to knock a guy for getting injured all the time, you just have to take that into account at some point and really look at it. I mean, you know, Tyler O'Neill is a guy that the Dodgers may be able to get as part of a deal, and you throw him in there, and all of a sudden you've got another outfielder, a guy who can play center, a guy who can move around, and if he's healthy, he can be a really big addition to the team there as well. So, I mean, I think the Cardinals are a really good trading partner for the Dodgers right now. And the Cardinals, I mean, John Mozeliak has gone on and said that they're going to make changes. The question is, where are they going to make the changes, with whom, and when? Are they going to do it for the trading deadline, or are they going to be looking to do it in the offseason? You know, if they're making trading deadline deals, they're trying to get to a wild card spot. They're going to be looking for guys to come back, you know, in turn, that are going to help them try and sneak into the playoff. I mean, they're 10 games out of their own division right now. They're 10 games under 500, so it's going to be tough for them. But you never know. I mean, you get a couple of good right now guys for the guys you're not going to have next year. I mean, the right chemistry can click. And in St. Louis, when you're talking with that organization, with that fan base and everything, momentum can build really fast. So they may be looking for something right now, or they may be looking more towards the future to build with some of the young guys that they have, like Jordan Walker, Jordan Walker. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And Arenado, by the way, you're right. He's under contract through 2027. And to get a deal done for Arenado, if the Dodgers were to aggressively pursue him, they would need a lot of assets. But, I mean, there's no team in better position than the Dodgers to make that sort of move. You know,
it's not just the talent that they're going to give up. It's that they have to move salary as well. They have to move salary to stay under that threshold at the end of the year to be eligible to go above the salary tax structure. And that's the big thing. That's what they did last year. I mean, everybody kept waiting for them to make moves over the winter, and they didn't do anything. They didn't make any moves at all because it was all about the salary structure heading into the 2024 Major League Baseball year, which begins in December. So it's all about signing Ohtani at that point. So they would have to really finesse a lot of players and probably move some bigger names when it comes down to it. I think Max Muncy has to be part of that deal if they're going to do it. I think you're going to have to move some big dollars off of the Dodgers payroll to be able to accommodate all the money that you're going to have to be paying Nolan Arenado, and have to account for that against your salary level.
But if there's one team that can finesse it, it's the Los Angeles Dodgers. I mean, we've seen it. We've seen it countless times with the Dodgers. I mean, if there's one team that can finesse it, it really is the Dodgers. I don't expect the Dodgers to go too crazy this deadline, like you said, with Ohtani's impending free agency. But I think if there is, but I'm going to stay with it too. I think if there was any move that made sense to go big for, and this is just me just saying, if they were to go big, it's getting Nolan Arenado to be the third baseman of the next half decade for LA. And then you would have to move on from Max Muncy if you do something like that.
Him and others. You know, I mean, I really think it's an 80-20 chance that the Cardinals, you know, move Arenado, and the 20 is that they actually make a move with him. Okay, but in that 20, I think the Dodgers are one of the teams that would be in that 20 that could make it work.
Yeah. I want you to entertain this question right here from Dylan.
Mm-hmm.
Who do my Cubs trade Stroman to? I pray we do, because we can get back a nice little haul for the future. What are your thoughts on
that? When you talk about a guy the caliber of Marcus Stroman, starting pitcher who can go out there, and he's not just innings, he's quality when he goes out there. You talk about the passion that the guy approaches his profession with, the dedication that he got, and he's one of those guys that you would love to have. Now, if it's me, the team that would do the best with him and could offer the most for him would be Tampa Bay. And Tampa's had some issues, some injuries with their pitching. Shane McClanahan got beat up today, and he's one of the best pitchers in baseball. And he's been nicked a little bit this year. Started off the year great, and then his health got a little questionable. Spent some time on the injured list, and he's been beat up a few times since then. You look at they lost Springs. They've lost a couple of other pitchers that they were really counting on going in. and they've held it together because there's so much talent in that system. That's what the Tampa Bay Rays do. They draft talent, and then they think about positionally, putting people in, somewhere later. Taj Bradley did well for them for a while. He's been roughed up here. Yanni Chirinos was the guy who performed them in the past, and they just designated him for assignment. So, I mean, they've had some transition going there. But Stroman going to Tampa Bay, I think he's a guy they wouldn't mind teaming up there with Zach Eflin. Zach Eflin's having a great season for the Rays, in their starting rotation. And I think you put Stroman along with Eflin, and everything falls into place when it comes for the Tampa Bay Rays. And you talk about talent that you're going to get back, that is easily the deepest minor league system in baseball. Their number 15 prospect is probably more along the lines of a top 7 or 8 prospect of a lot of organizations in this in Major League Baseball. So, I mean, if it was me, if it's a smart move, I think Stroman would head to Tampa. I think Tampa would be very smart to get him. Tampa also needs a catcher. They just had their second catcher, Mejia, go down, and they're thin at catcher. A guy who's available for Tampa as well is Elias Diaz, the national, the National League hero from the All-Star game, the MVP of the All-Star game. He's with the Rockies. Those are 2 deals I see the Rays making, and Stroman is one of them. But Stroman could end up with a lot of teams because it's hard for a team to say, no, we've got too much talent. We don't need Marcus Stroman. He's right. That good. He's just not that good of a player, of a pitcher. He's that good of a personality. A guy with the fire and the passion to go out there and be part of a playoff run and really fire a team up too.
Yeah, and you look at what he's done this year. I mean, this year his ERA is down to 2.88 through 20 starts. I mean, he's been phenomenal. So it's fairly logical that the Rays would be interested in a guy like Stroman, who has a long track record of big league success. Mm-hmm. And he brings a lot of experience. And like you said, he always brings that competitive fire. I love his passion. I love when he strikes someone out, how he shows a lot of emotion. He pitches with a lot of energy and enthusiasm, and that's what you want on your team. And the Rays, like you said, they do need another quality arm in their starting rotation.
Well, here's something that people I think missed about Marcus Stroman this year. Marcus Stroman came out and was talking about Alek Manoah, the starter for the Toronto Blue Jays, his former teammate. Manoah was struggling mightily, got sent down, to the minors and everything like that. And Stroman came out and said, "You watch. He's going to come back and he's going to be electric. He's going to be the guy that everybody remembered." He said that guy is going to bring it. And what did Alek Manoah do? He came back from the minor leagues just gunning and making it work. So that'll tell you the kind of stuff that Marcus Stroman has going on between his ears. This guy is not just talented, but he's a consummate guy of the game. He understands the game in ways that most guys, most of us don't even understand. That's the intangible that you're getting with a guy like Stroman. I would love you give me a rotation with 5 of him, and I'd win a World Series every other year at least.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when he pitched for the Blue Jays, and he had that same energy, that same personality that you see on the mound now. But the Cubs are having a great season overall. So do you really, really consider even moving him? Is a big question.
Well, I mean, they're in contention, but what are they in contention for? And who are they going into contention with? Guys like Patrick Wisdom and Trey Mancini and those kind of guys. And are you gonna be able to get those guys out of the way to let some of your young players come in there and some players that you would want to acquire? Because Cubs fans, while they carry the reputation of being, happy with their lovable losers and everything like that, the Cubs fans want to be successful just like anybody else. and they're smelling the playoffs as well. They're smelling a wild card spot. Maybe a wild, a playoff home game at Wrigley. So yeah, they want that too, and you're back for Stroman if you're going to. Again, the Cubs are in a similar position to the Angels in that trading Stroman might be sending up the white flag and saying, okay, you're not worried about the playoffs right now. And what is that going to do for your organization? What is it going to do for your fan base? What is it going to do for everything? That sends a signal to potential free agents that, maybe this is not the place for, they're going to have a shot at it and then give it up. Personally, I think the Cubs could be buyers. The Cubs could be buyers and bring in an arm or two, and maybe a position player, and be able to secure a wild card spot.
Yeah, the Cubs could absolutely be buyers. We'll just have to wait and see. Like I said, it's going to be interesting this year's trade deadline. I will be locked in. I might have you even back on for another episode when the trade deadline does happen, because I think you are an expert at this stuff. Yep. And you bring some of the best baseball analysis. So I would love to definitely have you back on to talk about all that stuff. But now we're about to get into our last topic of the show, and we're keeping it in Chicago, my friend. But we're gonna take a little ride over to the soft side of Chicago now, because we're going to talk a little bit about Tim Anderson. Now, Tim Anderson is another interesting name. He's another name that could possibly be on the move. Everyone is talking about Tim Anderson potentially being traded away from the Chicago White Sox. Now, he has not had a year that's up to his standards. He has not played his best baseball this year, and I think not the Cubs, but the White Sox are ready to blow things up in the soft side. They're ready to go into another direction, and most likely that's going to be without Tim Anderson. What are your thoughts on a Tim Anderson trade, and where do you think he will end up, and what do you think is the best fit for him?
Yeah, easily the most difficult season of his career. Something's amiss there, and I don't think it's a physical problem. I don't think he's happy. He doesn't seem to be playing with the same enthusiasm and the same, the fire. It's just not there for him in Chicago right now. And, it's probably best that he moves on. He's got 1 year left on his contract. It's going to be it's a $14 million club option for next year. So if you trade for the guy and you're not totally happy with what you're getting, he doesn't want to be there or something like that, it's $1 million buyout. And $1 million is a lot of money to you and me, but when it comes to Major League Baseball teams that generate, hundreds of millions of dollars in a year, $1 million buyout for a guy to let him go be a free agent is not that big a deal. So I think he definitely needs to get out of Chicago and move on. And I am looking at the Marlins as the natural fit for them. Right now, the Marlins are having a rotation of several different guys that are working out. Joey Wendell, and they had Garrett Hampson. They had some other guys that were running through shortstop. Personally, I think Tim Anderson not only is the right guy for them to go get, but I think that's a great place for him to be as well. You go from the main struggling team that the White Sox are to a young team that has a lot of potential and are playing well, and he's got a shot at the playoffs easily. He could be in the playoffs without much of a problem at all. So you're looking at that. You're looking at change of scenery, that change of environment, that change of energy for him. I think would be great, and I think he'd be fantastic for that young team too. He would plug that shortstop position up just great and give them everything, give them a veteran guy who's been around and knows what it's like to be there every day. And he could have an investment in the future for him, both for next year and beyond, with a young team like that. I mean, Tim Anderson's not an old guy. No. I mean, he's got a lot of years left in this league. Excuse me. And I think it would be a great fit for him. And I think the Marlins, again, one of the more talented farm systems that you have in baseball. They've got an absolute glut of starting pitching in their system from the major league level down through the AA level right now, and giving up one of those guys like the guy I have them going for is Edward Cabrera. Edward Cabrera is a very talented young starting pitcher. He's having some troubles this year, but I think he's a guy that brings enough upside for them to be able to offer for Tim Anderson. And, for Tim Anderson in that situation to be able to get him back. I've got Edward Cabrera and Xavier Edwards is a young middle infielder who the Marlins had acquired from the Tampa Bay system to be able to go back to the White Sox. The White Sox, if Tim Anderson goes in a trade, you're looking at nobody who is heir apparent to shortstop or second base, and Edwards could be a guy, a young speed guy with a good contact bat that could come in there and play a lot for the White Sox as well. So I think Edward Cabrera and Xavier Edwards for Tim Anderson would be a great deal for both sides. And hopefully that would be the trigger to start unloading for the White Sox to start unloading a lot of players, because that's one of the two teams that I think should be making, a lot of moves over the next week or so, because they need to. They are going nowhere. They're a middle of the road team with a lot of older players and a lot of big salaries that they got to get rid of. And, and they've got to move on, and you can't move on with more older players and bigger salaries, because you've reached your limit as far as what you can pay in money. So you've got to rebuild the other way. You've got to start acquiring some of these younger players and start acquiring upside rather than, paying for people what they did last year.
Right.
So the White Sox, the White Sox should do really well. I think the Marlins are a great match for Tim Anderson.
Yeah, I can see that. I actually like that spot for him as well. I know this is a man who needs a change of scenery. I don't know if it's mental or mechanics, but I think it's more of a mental thing with him right now. I don't think baseball is what's on his mind right now. I think maybe he has a lot of things going on in his personal life. You've heard some stories about his personal life right now, so maybe that's has a part of it as well. I just know that he has been considered a potential candidate, a potential trade candidate with the White Sox for a long time now. As this team continues to fall out of contention, I do know that much, and I know he can go somewhere else and probably flip the script and turn it around and get back on track, because I'm used to seeing Tim Anderson put the ball in play. Now, he's not necessarily a power hitter type guy. He's never been a power hitter, but he's always been good at getting on base. He's won a couple of batting titles with his ability to slap the ball into the field and all that good stuff. And so he has the talent. He's capable of producing RBIs and moving runners over, but we just haven't seen it this season. And I think he needs a change of scenery to help him get back on track and help him get back to the Tim Anderson that he once was.
Well, I mean, he's a guy, he'll surprise you when it comes to power level. I mean, he's reached 20 homers before. He's generally good for around 12 to 15 in a season. But, if you think to the past few years when the Chicago White Sox have been in contention, you think of who's at the forefront of that run, and that's been Tim Anderson. His energy is typically, very formidable when it comes to being out front of that team and being a leader for that team. And there's something that's robbed him of that energy, whether it's, personal matters, whether it's the way the team has been run, whether it's, how the team has been playing. Who can say? He's the only one that can say for that. But I can tell you, when it comes to having the blues, there's not too many better remedies than South Beach. So I think that may work out. Just all the way around may be a great one for both teams.
Yeah, absolutely. You hit it on the nail right there. Rich, my friend, it's been fun. We have reached the hour mark just about, and I just want to say thank you for coming on. My guests, it seems they had a great time. It was a great show, another great episode of Speaking with Judgment. And my friend, I want to thank you for joining me this afternoon, taking the time out of your afternoon to be on this show. And also, I want to take a moment to thank the viewers for watching as well, because without you guys, none of this is possible. Rich, before we get out of here, I want to give you some final thoughts. Anything that's on your mind, anything you want to say to our viewers out there, tell them what you do, let them know where they can find you, all that good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I used to run 643 baseball, and that was a company that we tried to get rolling, and it didn't work out the best. So just doing something on my own now. Started a new page. It's called MLB Trade Machine, and it's all about player movement. That's all it's going to be about. Some of the stuff we talked about today is there, and there'll be more as it goes along. And when it comes down to it, everybody wants to see players come to their team and be able to, improve their team. Everybody hangs on that. So I think it's important, that, we just focus on, we have a source that just focuses on that completely. And that's what I wanted to do with that. So I invite everybody, MLB Trade Machine on Facebook, and look it right up. And once you follow, you can put your own thoughts on there, your own trade proposals and everything like that. And that's when it gets to be fun. That's when you start talking about these different things, and the dialogue gets to be, a lot of fun for everybody involved. So I invite everybody in. And Jonathan, as always, it's always a pleasure to talk with you. Love to talk with you shortly before the trade deadline, which I guess next Monday, or not this Monday, but the following Monday. And we'll see what's going down. If there'll be some moves. There's probably some moves going on this week. And once they start, who knows where they're going to stop.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be bananas for sure. No doubt about it. It's always crazy around trade deadline. So we're gonna see. We're gonna see what's gonna happen. Only time will tell. But my friend, it's been a pleasure. And thank you, everyone. You guys have a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Please be safe out there. Please be responsible. Please be grown adults. Do the right thing. Talk to you guys next time in another episode of Speaking with Judgment. And for Rich and myself, you guys have an awesome day. See you guys next time. Take care, everyone.